So here's my story on the carnivore diet. Hi, my name's Tom, and this is my carnivore life. So my journey began actually in 2009. So in 2009, I was getting ready for work one day, and it was all I could do to tie my shoes. Now I had the proverbial beer belly growing for several years, but I was in denial as to how big it actually was until that morning. So I went in, stood on a bathroom scale, and came in at 250 pounds. And that was the moment that I decided I needed to change something. That also began my journey into researching diet and nutrition and trying to understand why I had gained the weight I did and how to reverse it. So, I followed the normal advice. I went low fat, whole grains. I was walking in the morning, walking at lunch, walking at night. I took up jogging, bought a home gym. I did it all. I went all in on it. And over the years of trying different things, and this wasn't all done at one time, this was in different stages of trying different things. And over the years, I would lose a little bit, then I would gain back, and then I would lose a bit, and I would gain back. And I tried Weight Watchers and a number of other things, and there's nothing really was a long-term solution. I could never keep the weight off more than a couple of months. And one of the biggest problems, especially with eating low-fat, high-carb, and Weight Watchers, was I was constantly hungry. So, eventually I just gave in because I was hungry. And I couldn't understand why, if I was eating the way I was supposed to eat and exercising and all that, why was I always hungry? I didn't remember that growing up. I wasn't always hungry. There were times I'd go all day and not eat. As kids, we would go hiking down to the river or walk the railroad tracks or ride our bikes all day, and never once gave a thought about going home to eat lunch. So it really bothered me that I wasn't really gaining traction with anything, and it seemed like I was just on a hamster wheel. Then the pandemic hit, and so I had a little bit more time to research. Now, I had heard about Weston Price and read a few other things, but most of what I was finding in that realm was dealing with things like Alzheimer's and dementia. So I never really put two and two together as to what Carnivore was until the pandemic. So during that time, I started doing more research. And of course, by now, there was more people who were doing the carnivore diet and talking about it more. And so I'm like, okay, well, what's it hurt to try it? So I tried it, and much to my wife's chagrin, because she didn't want anything to do with it. Over the course of a few months, I dropped like 35 pounds. That's pretty good. But I didn't really stick with it. I only did it for, 3 or 4 months. And I think part of the reason I didn't was because I was constantly getting complaints from my wife about how she has to cook 2 meals. And so we agreed to basically do the ketogenic diet. And we kind of did that. It was a very loose interpretation of it. We still ate fast food and had junk, not as much as we had before. But I gained weight back, probably 25 pounds. I didn't gain all of it back. So I kind of stayed in that pattern for a number of years. And when I was diagnosed back in February of 25 with my osteoarthritis, I started doing the research again, and more specifically towards that area. And the carnivore diet kept coming up and up again and again. And so I told my wife, I said, this is, what I'm seeing. And it's not just coming from, forums or Facebook posts. There are doctors recommending carnivore for people with arthritis. And it was at that point that she finally got on board with it. Now, I kind of equate her to more of a ketovore, because she does eat some vegetables. She'll have a salad occasionally, and she likes her cucumbers and strawberries. But for the most part, we're both carnivore. I don't deviate very often. If I do, it's a treat. And I know what I can eat that is going to trigger the pain with my osteoarthritis. So I know that going into it. Now, I've never been much of one that was a binge eater. I ate like crap, but I didn't binge. So for me, when I decided to go carnivore, it was easy for me to go, okay, I'm carnivore, done, and right into it. So, I know a lot of people aren't like me and can't do that, and that's okay. You do what you can do. You get yourself down to where you need to be. But over the 15 years of researching diet and nutrition, I've come to understand more about the carnivore diet, and have been able to reflect back onto my upbringing and how we ate when I was younger. Now, my mom was always on the health food side of things. She had Prevention magazine, which I don't even know if that's still around or not. We had a garden. We raised chickens. Not a lot of them, maybe a dozen or 2 chickens, mainly for the eggs. But our garden was, traditional small garden: green beans, peas, sunflower seeds, tomatoes, potatoes, lettuce, that sort of thing, cucumbers. But growing up, we really didn't have fast food that often. We might have had it maybe 6 times a year. Desserts, in the summer we would have ice cream a couple times, and maybe some cookies, and it wasn't often that we got store-bought cookies, and if we did, there were those Hydrox cookies that were like $900 for $1. And I think everybody my age knows what I'm talking about. Other than that, it was cookies that either my mom or my sisters made. So there really wasn't a plethora of sweets around the house growing up. You got cake when it was somebody's birthday, cake and ice cream. You get pumpkin pie, maybe an apple pie or a cherry pie with Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner. And that was about it. So, when I became an adult and started being able to buy fast food and the sweets and, the desserts and things that I didn't get growing up, at the time, I don't think it really affected me because my metabolism was so high. It took probably 2 decades of my metabolism slowly declining from what I was eating. And especially once I went from doing physical labor to sitting at a desk, that just kind of accelerated it. And that's what led me to where I weighed 250 pounds. But researching all this and learning, or I should say relearning stuff I already knew, but just didn't quite put it together, led me to my final destination that I'm at now. And my health now is about what it was in my 20s. Blood pressure is good, cholesterol is good, triglycerides are good, everything's good. All my vitamin levels are normal. I just had my appointment a few weeks ago, and my doctor's like, yep, everything's good, got no complaints. So I feel like I got on the right track and did what was best for me. And I see a lot of people go out there and I think they get lost because diet has become the new religion. And no matter how much evidence that you present to someone about a way of eating, they will believe what they believe, regardless. And to break, I guess, the cycle of that really takes some willpower. You really have to want to change, you have to want to understand the science behind the diets. And beyond that, even when you look at the science, you have to go further and look at what's the motivation behind the science. It's kind of like the tobacco industry. Back in the 50s and 60s, cigarettes are good for you. And over time, as people began to look further past the science to what was driving the science, you find out that the scientists were paid off. They were paid to give a favorable review of tobacco and to downplay the negatives. And I think that's what's happening right now in the diet world. That you have industry that is driving research, but causing the research to have the desired outcome and not what is right and true. So it's really hard for people to discern between the types of research that's going on and the reports coming out to know what's good, what's not good. And so all you have to go on is basically people's experiences that they post online, or maybe someone you talk to in person, because the science is so bastardized that you can't even believe that anymore, one way or the other. Now, I think a lot of the carnivore science actually dates back well over 200 years. It was in the mid 1700s that the carnivore diet was first prescribed for anybody. And it's been done periodically throughout history. And there's been different research done that was credible research, and not pseudoscience, not industry driven, that has surfaced that basically time forgot. You look at the Stephenson expedition back in the early 1900s to study the Inuit in Alaska, and he got stuck up there. Him and his research assistant got stuck up there for 3 years. And when he came back, he was perfectly healthy, but he was telling people that all he ate was meat, and nobody believed him. Oh, you can't do that. You're going to die, blah, blah, blah. So him and his research assistant said, okay, fine. Lock us up in a hospital for a year and feed us nothing but meat and water and see what happens. And so that's what they did. And after a year, they came out, they were healthier than when they went in. But again, lost to time. And part of that is because of industry influence. You can trace it back to even our medical community and how we dealt with health and disease prior to the formation of the American Medical Association. And yeah, there was a lot of quack science back then. It was the Wild West of health. But there are also some things out there that were valuable and did work. And I think some of those things we're starting to rediscover. The problem with our modern medical system is because of the pharmaceutical industry trying to monetize any kind of treatments or cures. And I want to use the word cures very carefully because they don't really cure anything anymore. It's all about getting you hooked on a prescription that you're going to take for the next 25 years. If that weren't the case, then we would have the American Diabetes Association touting the keto and carnivore diet as a way to reverse type 2 diabetes, but we don't get that. And that's because there's too much money to be made in the medical industry treating people that have this. But getting back to my story, sorry I got off on a little tangent there, but 15 years of research and trying things myself has led me to the carnivore diet as the diet that is best suited for humans based on our ancestry, based on our digestive system, and based on the results that we've seen when there's been controlled studies done. And every controlled study that's been done shows the same thing, that the low-carb, high-fat diet is the best diet for humans. We're not gorillas, we're We're not elephants. We're more like a lion. Our digestive system is very closely related to carnivores in the animal kingdom. And at our base level, we are animals. Whether people want to believe that or not, we are. We're just intelligent animals. And sometimes I question that. But, so that's my story. That's kind of how I got to carnivore. That's some of the things that triggered me into delving into it, what got me started in diet nutrition. There are numerous articles out there, studies that will lead you to the same conclusion, but you've got to want to find the information because, well, let's face it, modern science and the medical community don't want you finding it. And you can call me a conspiracy theorist for that if you want, that's fine. But through my own experiences in dealing with the medical community eating this way, they are not on board with it at all. You'll find some that are, but most of them are not. But, at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you because, you're your best health advocate. And if your research leads to the same conclusion mine did, then there's no reason to doubt that eating this way is going to be the best way for you to eat. Now, I want to put in a little anecdote there because I do think that some of our diet is driven by our ancestry. And what I mean by that is there are places around the world where vegetation is more readily available than meat is. Places like the Amazon, tropical environments. Yeah, there's probably fish available in abundance, but having cows or pigs or chickens, they're not. So if your ancestry is more closely related or is derived from those regions of the world, then I would say that a diet that is full of vegetation supplemented with animal products is probably your best diet. But this notion that eating pizza every night or chicken fried in peanut oil or canola oil is healthy is just wrong. And anybody that espouses that type of eating shouldn't even be out there because it simply is not accurate at all. These products did not exist prior to the turn of the 20th century. So we have survived tens of thousands of years eating meat supplemented by plants. And the only reason they ate plants is because they needed to live, and if they could eat it, they would when meat was in short supply. So it wasn't the focus of our ancestors. The focus of our ancestors was meat, nose to tail, organs, blood, you name it. Every part of that animal was eaten or used. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you get a better understanding of where I came from. I hope you take it upon yourself to do the research, find the studies, the controlled studies, not epidemiological, but controlled, and learn for yourself the way we are actually supposed to eat. I think you'll find it enlightening. Give me a like, give me a comment, let me know what you think. Have you done the research? Do you need pointers of where to find the research? Whatever it is, leave me a comment and I'll respond to you. Thanks, and have a great day.